So having looked at some of the challenges, we're going to introduce our next speaker who's out there living some of these challenges as we speak at an age which is inconceivable to me. I would like to invite Zara Rutherford up here to the stage to talk to us about her 5 months of solo flight around the world and really an example to all of us. Come on up, Zara.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. I've heard apparently there's people joining from all around the world, so I think it's very fitting that I flew around the world. Let me just get my notes up. I'd like you all to picture the scene. You're flying along over the Japanese Sea at 2,000 feet. You're heading towards South Korea from Russia. On your right is North Korea. It's about 2 hours away. You've been told, whatever happens, Zara, you do not go into North Korean airspace. On my left is Japan, 3 hours away, and behind me, Russia, 4 hours away. I'm flying along, and there's a cloud blocking the path, or it looks like it's blocking the path a few, 100 miles away. Great. I'm flying VFR, I'm flying visually, I'm not allowed to fly into cloud. So you consider your options. A, you keep going, hope for the best. Maybe in an emergency actually fly into the cloud if you have to. B, you turn back towards Russia. It's now 4 hours away. Maybe there's not enough daylight. Maybe the weather's changed. Maybe you don't have enough fuel. These are things you have to consider. C, you go to Japan. You're not supposed to go to Japan, you don't have the permits. In an emergency you can. Or D, you cut across into North Korean airspace. These were questions that I was not expecting to have to answer when I set off to plan this, to set off to fly around the world. I was hoping it'd be relatively easy. North Korea wasn't part of that plan. I was really lucky. I grew up in aviation. Both of my parents are pilots, and planes were there my whole life, and I knew that I was going to fly a plane. From the moment I was born, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go fly in the sky and see the world. But at the time, I didn't quite mean it literally. I'd always dreamt of flying around the world. I thought, isn't that the greatest adventure you could do? To see the world from 2,000 feet and take your time and do it. But it's impossible. I mean, why should I be the one who gets to fly around the world? It's too dangerous, it's too expensive, it's too complicated. Where do I even start? So I went through school, didn't really think that much about it, got my pilot's license, loved flying. And it's only when I got to senior year of high school that I realized with that attitude, it definitely won't happen. If I'm always thinking, why bother trying if it's not going to happen anyway, well, then it won't happen. So I decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to take a gap year. I'm going to go for this 100%. I'm going to give it my all. So I told my dad, super excited. My mum, not so much. But I was set. I was like, I'm doing this 100%. Let's go. Okay, so how? There's a few things I had to consider. One was money. Again, paperwork. And I need a plane. It's kind of hard to fly around the world if you don't have a plane. And so in the beginning, I was thinking, okay, sponsorship, let's look towards sponsorship. I didn't actually realize I'd be breaking a record when I decided to go for this. I knew I was going to be the youngest person. I was aware there was a man that was younger than me. And I just assumed the youngest woman wouldn't be far behind, maybe a few months. Turns out it was 12 years. The youngest woman was 30 years old, the youngest man was 18. I thought that was ridiculous. Shocking. So I said, okay, you know what, I'm going to become the youngest woman then and try and close that gap a little bit more. So now I had a purpose, I had a goal, I could try and motivate and encourage more girls to go into aviation, where only 5% of commercial pilots are women, and fly around the world, and now it's looking for sponsorship. If anybody could tell me how you convince strangers to give a 19-year-old money to fly around the world, please do let me know. I still have no idea how it worked out. A miracle. And so I emailed 500 different companies. I tried to tell them, look, this is my plan, this is who I am. I'd like a bit of money to do it, and in return, you'll have a logo on the plane, logo on the cap, whatever it is. They all said no. Okay, that's fine. A month before departure, I've got a bit of sponsorship from amazing people who believed in me, but I was still lacking the actual money to do it with a month before departure. Okay. Then one day, a Bulgarian man phones me up, and he says, Zara, I heard about what you're doing on the news, and I think it's super exciting. I want to help you. I want to help you achieve your dream. Okay, we can relax now. It's good we have the money. Then it came to actually looking for a plane. So what criteria? What kind of plane am I looking for? I needed to fly a microlight around the world. At the time I decided to do this, I only had a microlight license. So let's look at some of the microlights. I considered using an electric aircraft. I had a look. Sadly, the technology isn't quite there yet. It's quite hard to fly across the Atlantic in a plane that only has about an hour and a half endurance. You could give it a shot, but you might not make it to your destination. So, okay, let's look at another aircraft, maybe one that has good fuel endurance, efficient, quick, whatever it is. The Shark was an obvious choice. The Shark is right here, as you can see in the PowerPoint. Fabulous, I got a plane. And then the route. The route was super simple. Had a lot of fun doing it. Grabbed a map, a pen, and drew a line. It was a lot of fun. That's the best part of it. Okay, so now I have sponsorship, I have a plane, I have a route. The paperwork's been sorted. I'm doing this. There is no barriers left to overcome. I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to fly around the world. In August, I leave. And it was amazing. It was so exciting that finally I got to do this incredible trip that I dreamt about. But at the same time, I was quite nervous. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what's going to come up. On day 2, I'm already setting off for my first solo transatlantic. I'm wearing my amazing orange suit that increases the time you can actually swim in the water from 30 seconds to 5 minutes and 30 seconds. You might think, what are the 5 minutes going to do when you're stuck in the Atlantic Ocean? Well, 5 minutes will give me a life raft, allow me to blow up a life raft, climb in, and call for help. And the next day, so I leave, and I'm headed towards Iceland. It's 5 hours. I'm stuck at about 1,000 feet for most of it, 1,500 feet to stay below the cloud. And it's tough, and it's kind of scary. And suddenly I reach Iceland, and I find one of the most amazing sights of this planet, an active volcano. And it's an amazing opportunity to fly not quite straight over it, I don't think that's safe, but around it, and have a look at the lava, and just kind of appreciate it for a moment. Soon the next day actually, I was already confronted with how the human effect on our planet, how it's affecting our planet. I was headed towards Greenland, and one of the most amazing sights of our planet, the ice cap, is thousands of miles of just white ice. And I met these NASA scientists there who they were dropping probes into the ocean to measure temperature, the salinity of the water, and other measurements to try and compare that over time and figure out what was going on and how we could potentially solve it. At the same time, I was also made aware of the impact on the locals. The headmistress of the local school was telling me that the polar bears were actually heading further south and becoming a threat to human beings. So suddenly when your kids are going to school, that becomes a real problem. Polar bears, imagine. I'm worrying about rain. And I'm immersed in this new world where they have these concerns that we would never even think about. So one of the most beautiful sights with icebergs and glaciers, and one of the most amazing flights of my life. So I reach the eastern coast of the US, I cross the Atlantic, and I'm heading south. I'm going to Indonesia. Oh, sorry, Colombia. Indonesia is not, that would be very far south. And This was the first time in my life I was flying around the equator. You can't really prepare for what it's like to fly around the equator from Belgium. And it's very different there. The weather's very unpredictable. And I would check the forecast, and essentially it was telling me, there is going to be a thunderstorm this afternoon. We don't know exactly where, and we don't know exactly when. Good luck. Okay, great. So what I did, and I'm not really exaggerating when I say this, it was, okay, well, it's blue skies here, it's blue skies at my destination, it's 4 hours in between, I'll be fine. Give it a go, see what happens. I had to divert that flight. It wasn't okay in the end. But that was the first time where technology kind of failed me. So for the first time as well, the forecasts weren't that good. I was flying up through Mexico, and I had Iridium satellite communications, so I could always text people back home. And I was flying through Mexico, and I could see this grey, it looked grey thing in the distance. So I text, at the time it was my dad, who was back in Belgium, and I text him and I say, can you just check the satellite footage? I feel like there's something in front of me, but I'm not sure. Please could you double check? He sends me a message back and he says, no, completely fine. Go direct, don't worry about it. Okay, some few minutes later, please can you just double check, because it really does look like there's something there. He sends me a message back and he says, nope, blue skies all the way to a destination, just go straight, you'll be completely fine, don't worry about it. And then I have to text back, well, I just saw a lightning strike, so maybe not. Just go around and then get to the destination. The second time I was reconfronted with the effect of climate change on the planet was California, because I was flying in California when they had pretty big wildfires. Again, I was not aware of coming from Belgium, we don't have many wildfires. And I wasn't sure how to fly with those. How do you fly around the wildfire, over wildfire? They're so large you can't fly around them. And so I spoke to some pilots and they said, well, you can try and stay above the smoke or hope that the winds are good and give it your best shot. Okay, I'll give it my best shot. So I depart, and this was a flight from San Francisco to Seattle, and very quickly it turned quite bad. So I was flying along, and slowly but surely visibility reduced to the point where I couldn't see anything anymore. It was just a brownish, orangish color. Shortly after that, I could smell the smoke inside of the cockpit, and then soon after that, turbulence went way up. So I said, nope, and I turned around and I landed elsewhere. But then already I'm confronted with all these things that I'm thinking, I was not expecting this when I left home. But there were some pretty amazing sights as well. I headed further north to get to Alaska and Siberia, so that's how I crossed the Pacific Ocean. It's quite a big sea or ocean, so you have to go way up north to cross it. And that was the first time in my life when I saw thousands of miles without a road, a village, an electricity cable, a human being. Beautiful, very impressive, but very scary. Because for the first time in my life, I lost my safety net. Right? For the first time in my life, I was on my own. And if something went wrong, I couldn't say, I'm out, I'm done, someone else take control. It's up to me to figure it out. And if I don't, that could lead to some bad consequences. So that was a pretty scary flight. And then if I thought Alaska was bad, I hadn't even got to Siberia yet, where it was the same, just times 10 and 5 times colder. It was minus 35 degrees Celsius when I was flying over Siberia, and I was very nervous because I wasn't sure how the plane would cope. I'm testing the engine. I'm effectively becoming a test pilot in the Shark in a microlight aircraft. Great. Again, not what I signed up for, but I'm looking forward to it. And it ended up being one of the most incredible flights. As I'm heading further south, again into Indonesia, but to reach it, from Russia to South Korea, I had North Korea in between, one of those political things affecting my route and affecting my flights. Originally, I was actually supposed to go through Russia, China, and then from there further south into Indonesia. But because of COVID, that wasn't possible. So then South Korea became the next best option, which I was really looking forward to. But again, North Korea, not good news. If anybody's wondering which option I chose the option where you kept going and hoped for the best. And it worked out, thankfully. But I did message my parents back home to ask them if it would be okay if I could cut across into North Korean airspace. And I never got a response so fast, saying no, full stop. Reaching Southern Asia was really special for me. It was the first time I went there. First time I got to meet the people, and everybody was so generous. That was one of the most incredible things on my flights, was realizing how generous everybody was. I diverted multiple times to places where people had no idea what I was doing or who I was. They just saw a random girl flying in this tiny plane in their airport, and they still helped out. They were there, they were to help mechanics, whatever I needed. They said, whatever you need, give us a shout, and we'll help you out. The two most shocking moments for me that come to mind for effects of humans on the planet were probably India and Dubai. So I was originally supposed to go through Bangladesh and northern India, which is Delhi. But the smog in India at this time of year was so bad, visibility dropped to 1,500 meters. It didn't get better. Flying VFR, so flying visually, that doesn't give me enough time, or that's not enough visibility for me to fly properly. So I couldn't do that. So I had to do a huge detour, which ended up having me do a 6-hour flight over water to avoid to northern India, even though I was really looking forward to going there. Instead, I went to Mumbai, where visibility was amazing. It was 2,500 meters, so it was a little bit better. When I left Mumbai to get to Dubai, an 8-hour flight, it took 2.5 hours before visibility improved. That was over the ocean. 2.5 hours. That's 750 kilometers, approximately. I get to Dubai after 8 hours. I'm tired. I'm done. I want to go to bed. I want to eat. And the air traffic controller comes on and he says, did you know there is a 40-knot gusting wind at your airport, perfect crosswind? For all the non-pilots, that means very strong and very bad. That's when my plane takes off. So I say, okay, well, I can't land there. Do you have any suggestions? And he says, well, Align is a good one. Align is 60 miles south of Dubai. So I land there. And I land, and it turns out over Dubai there was a thunderstorm. And I'm thinking, a thunderstorm over Dubai? It's supposed to be a desert. Why? I really picked my moment, didn't I, when I left for Dubai? And it turns out that they were cloud seeding. They were purposefully changing the weather to make it rain. Which that was incredible. And it rained a lot whilst I was there, and the roads were flooding because the ground isn't designed to absorb that kind of moist water. And it was fascinating. I actually ended up being stuck there for a few days. It was so bad. But shortly after that, I left again. My apologies, I forgot to. This is the air pollution in India. Get a bit of an idea of what it was like. Shortly after that, I head home again. And this was one of the most incredible sights because it was really nice. I'd gone through all of the hardest challenges. And I get to fly across the Saudi Arabian desert. And this is what I was greeted with. And there were actually camels. So I was flying low to try and take selfies with the camels, which was a lot of fun. So how we might have cows here, they have camels there. So they'd have farms with hundreds of camels. And I thought it was a lot of fun. It was really, really beautiful to see. And then shortly after that, I go back into Europe, where I was greeted with winter weather, and got home. And that was that. And still now, it feels incredibly surreal. Sometimes I feel like I've never done it. Sometimes I feel like I need to leave for my next destination. You wake up in the morning and you're thinking, where am I going today? Let me plan my flight, let me check the weather. But overall, it was one of the most incredible experiences. And if there's one thing I can take away, is realizing how small the planet was. And this might sound strange. I spent 5 months flying around it, but it is incredibly small. And so whereas before I might have thought, South Korea is so far away, it might as well be a different planet. It feels like it's so far away from here. Now I'm like, well, it's just around the corner. So if there's anything you can take away from this, it's we have a small planet, it's beautiful, and we do need to look after it. Thank you.
Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but there were moments there, Zara, I'm just in awe of what you achieved. And there were moments I felt quite emotional. And I just think it's an amazing thing for someone of any age, never mind your age, to have chosen to do. So congratulations, and thank you so much for a wonderful description of your adventure. And isn't it really... it's such a real reminder when you hear about the trials and tribulations in India and Dubai and the effect we're having on this planet. So, thank you again. Fantastic.